in Revolt.
Oh, I think I did see that one.
Yeah.
Does he play like his stepdad or something like that?
Well,
okay.
he ends up, he's a cop, and he ends up...
He's always a cop.
Yeah, he ends up meeting, or he befriends Michael Cera's mom, and then they end up getting together, and then he moves in, and of course Michael Cera doesn't like that, but yeah, he's in that film too, and that's all the same. That's all the same crew. So I'm wondering, he must be friends with them, or
he must be. And then they're like, "Oh, we just need that one crazy cop. Let's get Henry from."
He really is always a cop. And well, he was
not always, but
Killing Them Softly. He wasn't the cop, but he's still in that type of. He was that crazy guy.
He's always that one psycho demented guy, but that it doesn't come out till like certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
I like him though.
Yeah, he's always been pretty good. Anna Faris.
Oh, God. I can't stand her in this movie, but I think that's on purpose. Like, that's supposed to be her character.
Yeah, I think it's definitely.
She's like.
They definitely make her annoying.
Yeah, really annoying. She hates... So they all work at this mall. And she works at the cosmetics section. She just hates it.
It's
and her fucking lips.
The Forest Ridge Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think... I don't know if she really fits in this film. It seems kind of out in left field that it was her that they picked, but I mean, she's good at being annoying again.
Yeah, that she is.
There's this crazy part where she's on her way to work and she's listening to this like really obnoxious song about having sex for guys' genitalia or whatever, what have you. And then she gets out and parks a car, and she's walking up through the parking lot, and the pervert, which is the movie's villain, the guy or the film's based around, he ends up coming up to her and like basically jerking off in front of her, and she acts so offended. But it's hilarious because she was just listening to this raunchy music that was talking about the exact same thing that this guy just did, and she's totally plays a victim card, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, overly dramatic.
There's a lot of like weird like racial tension throughout this too.
Yes.
From Seth Rogen's character, like he it's really weird, like he attacks Aziz Ansari's character for like automatically thinking he's got to be a terrorist.
Yeah, and they name him, his name in the movie is like Saddam, but it's like double D double M or some shit like that. I don't know. I was looking at the credits, but I thought that was funny. It really pushes everything. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, I didn't watch this movie or know about it when it came out. I found out like years later, and I'm just like, what is this? It's funny. It's just like, what?
I think the opening is really strong, where you see basically they set you up for the mall, which is where most of the movie takes place, or the important parts at least, and then you meet Ronnie and his crew, and basically this kind of how do you say, like this guy is going around harassing, women and people in the parking lot around the mall, running around naked.
Yeah, he's a flasher. Mm-hmm. He wears a trench coat and nothing underneath. Mm-hmm. And so women are walking into the mall or out of the mall through the parking lot, and he just goes and flashes that, opens his trench coat, says stupid shit, and he just runs away.
Yeah, it's like he's...
That's like the beginning of the movie.
Basically, it's setting you up for, I guess, Ronnie, Seth Rogen's character. He wants to catch this guy.
Yeah, he's the head of mall security.
Mm-hmm. And he's this, because the film is based around Ronnie's character, where it's basically a character picture about this guy who takes himself too seriously. He's basically a rent-a-cop who wants to be in law enforcement, and he kind of has some he's kind of unstable.
Yeah, you find out he's like bipolar,
mm-hmm.
and so he takes medication for that.
Mm-hmm. And which kind of explains why he does some of the random stuff or that he does in the film, or he kind of does extreme things, and that kind of justifies it, which I thought was cool and kind of brings that kind of dark element to the film.
Really extreme. He just like walks around saying like, I know you did it, I know you're it, I'm gonna fucking kill you, I'm gonna murder you. He says stuff like that, so that shows you really like how unstable he is. He takes himself way too seriously. He's just like very serious about everything, but like on an extreme level.
Mm-hmm.
And
so we end up meeting Ray Liotta's character. I forget his name. Is it Harrison or
something like that? He's the detective
that comes down to investigate the flasher.
Detective Harrison.
And he comes down to basically to interview Anna Faris's character. What's her name again?
Brandy.
Yeah, Brandy.
With an I.
And Ronnie and the security guys, they kind of interrupt him because they are like, oh, you're encroaching on our scene and this is our turf, but Ray Liotta's, a detective, so he's just like, who the fuck are these guys,
He kind of just goes with it at the beginning because I feel like he has no other choice.
Yeah.
And they're just constant. Ronnie, the Seth Rogen's character, is just constantly there in his ear because he's trying to catch this pervert, and the detective has like no other choice but just to, go with it and try to find as many answers as he can. And it doesn't really work out.
Yeah, they try to team up, and Harrison basically loses his shit and says that Ronnie is inferior and that he's not a real cop, and that's when that puts this stress on that relationship, and it kind of motivates Ronnie to work harder to join law enforcement. He goes in for basically an interview, and he messes up. They do like a psychological test, and they ask...
He doesn't really mess up, though. He's actually really good. Like, unexpectedly, like, everything that the exams and everything, he actually does good. Mm-hmm. Even in the physical, like, they show you he knows how to fight. He knows how to, take care of himself. But when it comes down to the psychological test, he kind of fails because he doesn't see it himself. Like, he doesn't see that he actually does need to be on his medication. Mm-hmm. And other people just think that he's really delusional.
He says some weird stuff like, oh, I just want to I think I could just really take down some motherfuckers. He says that in the psychological interview, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna write this down."
He's like, "Yeah, you write it down. You go ahead and write that down."
He's kind of how do you say, like, you find out that he was raised, and it seems like he's still like a big overgrown child in some ways, that he's kind of not that he's dumb, but that he's naive in a few things, and then you find out that his mother's like an alcoholic.
Yeah, and he's
never had a father figure.
He takes care of his alcoholic mother. So he has the stress of catching this pervert at the mall, and then there's somebody else that's stealing stuff at the mall, like overnight. They come to the store and to the mall, and they realize that some stores have been robbed, and so they don't know who that is, and that's when the detective's like, you're nothing, I hate you, and all this other stuff. And Ronnie's like, oh no, I'm gonna be something, I'm gonna catch whoever's doing this. And then
so then he wants to do a ride along, and he has Ronnie, and he has the bright idea of basically catching Harrison off guard. He knows that Harrison already hates him, but he's like, you know what? You came to my job and you embarrassed me. Now I'm gonna embarrass you. I want my ride on. I guess every citizen is allowed to request a ride on from whoever they want. So then, and he already cleared it with the captain of Harrison's department. So then he has no choice but to take him on his kind of patrol. So he ends up taking him down to like the worst part of town, which is called nicknamed the Crossroads, I believe. And he tells him, I usually do these beats by myself, but I'm gonna let you do them tonight. And so Ronnie, he buys into it, and he's like, oh, I'm so honored, thank you so much, I'm not gonna let you down. He gets out of the car, he walks over, and then Harrison leaves him there, basically to get mugged or hurt or
And Ronnie's like, okay, I'm here to patrol this corner of death or whatever. Yeah. And he's just standing there pretending like he's gonna do some good, patrolling it. And these kids walk up to him, and he's like, hey kids, it's late, get on home or whatever. And one of them says, hey, you looking for that crack? And he's like, what do you mean crack cocaine? You just tried to offer me drugs, I'm taking you in. This is a citizen's arrest. And then the kid's father and a couple of cronies come up from behind him, and he's like, hey, let him go. That's my son, and it's none other than Danny McBride. Dressed as a thug, and he's got his son his son's face tattooed on his chest. And they have this kind of little showdown, where Ronnie's like, I'm still gonna take your kid in because he tried to sell me drugs. And then they pull a weapon on him, so he lets the kid go. And he kind of plays dumb, where he starts crying, and he's like, oh, don't shoot me, Yeah, he gets on his knees, and he's pretty much begs for his life. Because he's got a gun to his head.
But he actually has a police baton hidden in his pants that he pulls out, and he just beats the living shit out of that whole group of people, breaks somebody's arm.
I think it's like 6 guys.
Yeah. Which is probably my favorite part, my favorite scene in the movie. Because
that's the moment when you're like, when you find out that Ronnie can actually do something. Like, he can actually... He knows how to defend himself. He knows how to fight. Like, he may act dumb, but he uses it. He knows it, and he uses it to his advantage. And so that's when you're like, oh, okay, then he's really not, completely full of shit. and he brings that kid in at the end. He like beats all these guys up, and he